It's episode 576 of the Locked On Texas Rangers podcast. On today's show, I'm breaking down the Rangers' absolute stinker of a game last night against Seattle. What the heck is wrong with this pitching staff and how frustrating this season has been to start. All that and more on this episode of Locked On Rangers. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On to the Texas Rangers. I'm your host, Bryce Patrick, here today to talk about the Rangers' absolute mess of a start to the season. But first, thank you guys so much for being Locked On Rangers, your first listen every single day. If you're not already, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick, follow the show at Locked On Rangers, and subscribe on YouTube, where we are crawling closer to 800 subscribers, thanks to all 750 plus of you who have already done that, and to the several of you who are listening and have not. Go ahead and do that, and I'd really, really appreciate it. But what I really don't appreciate, is how bad this season has been to start. It has been an incredibly frustrating season to start for the Texas Rangers. There was all this hype. I was so excited. I didn't really have that high of expectations for this team relative to their expectations for themselves, but they have been bad. They have been one of the worst teams in baseball to start this season. They have had streaky offense. They have had horrific pitching to start this season. It's not been bad. It's been horrific. They are tied with Cincinnati for the fewest wins in baseball, in Major League Baseball, with a whopping 2 whole wins. Somehow one of those came against the Toronto Blue Jays, who looked absolutely incredible, and one of them came against Shohei Ohtani, because this team makes no freaking sense to start this stupid season. They're 2-8 through 10 games, and while 10 games isn't a lot, it's enough to take a look back and say, okay, this team kind of sucks, and it's not a minuscule sample size. It is just a small sample size, and some of the things that Woody's been saying have been just kind of adding to my frustration with this team. He says he's not worried about this team yet. You know, if they were playing their best, they were trying their hardest, and everything was going well, and they were still 2-8, then they'd be worried. But like, the fact that everyone's playing like crap is something that should be worrying. It's 10 games. It's not nothing. It's not, a 3-game series where, you got your butts kicked by a good team. That'd be like, all right, brush that off. It's fine. It's not like this team, everyone was saying, or at least, reasonable people with reasonable expectations, or people like myself, were saying, oh yeah, this team needs to contend for the World Series right now. This is a bona fide, playoff team for sure. If they don't make the playoffs, then whatever. And then there's all these outside little a-holes who are trying to clown on a team for spending money because they're jealous because their team hasn't spent money, which, just kind of sucks for them. But this team did spend money. There are expectations for them to not be terrible. The thought was, okay, the hitting is going to be much, much improved, because last year it was absolutely horrendous. One of the worst offensive teams in baseball. One of the worst offensive Rangers teams I have ever seen. Just some absolutely paltry, pathetic, disgusting offense. And through the first 3 games against Toronto, they looked amazing. The bats looked incredible. Looked like this is going to be one of the better offensive teams. Through the last few games against the Angels, and last night against Seattle and against Colorado, they have not looked anywhere near that. They have been a streaky offense who scores almost the entirety of their runs in the first 4 innings, and if you don't have a 30-run lead going into the final 3 innings, then your team's in trouble of losing, and that's a difficult scenario. It's a difficult formula to get a whole lot of wins from. It's not a recipe for success. Basically, outside of their win against LA, outside of their first series against Toronto, they really have barely scored any runs after the 4th inning. They score pretty well the first couple of innings, but then once the bullpen comes in, once they start to get behind because starting pitching or the bullpen or an entire bullpen game has given up a crap ton of runs, they just kind of fall apart. And, there's a lot more baseball that happens after the 4th inning. One might even say more than half the game. So if your offense is only doing well in the first 4 innings, then you don't really have a good offense. You have a good start to the game. And that's nice and that's good, that's important, but you need to keep scoring. You need to keep piling on runs. You need to, usually teams do better later on in games because they will see a starting pitcher a second or third time and they'll get more information. They will have better at-bats. But the Rangers haven't been doing that so far. And it's not like it's because the bullpens are coming in after the first time through the order. The starting pitchers everywhere are not going super far into games. I'm going to talk a little bit more about what the Rangers starting pitchers and how far they've been able to go and their bullpen woes and all that. But, I mean, this game last night was just an absolute stinker. It was nice to have John Gray back. It's necessary to have John Gray back. The Rangers can't afford even really one starter out of the rotation at this point, let alone 2, which they've had for the last time through the rotation. Spencer Howard is expected to be back this weekend from a blister, but who knows how far he's going to even be able to go into games once he gets there. I mean, the offense outside of Nathaniel Lowe and not much else has been going right for this Rangers offense. Even Corey Seager, he's got a good batting average. He's got a decent on base, but he cannot hit the ball hard at this point. He's getting a lot of slap singles. He is not hitting the ball for power. His timing looks a little bit off. Most of his hits have been, slap singles the other way, which is good. You need a few of those, but you also need to hit the crap out of the baseball. You need to be able to slug. You need to be able to have that fear of God that pitchers have when they're facing you. Like, oh no, if I don't make this pitch absolutely perfect, he is going to crush it. And Corey Seager's only really done that to one pitch this year, and it was his first home run of the season. He needs to get it on track. I know he doesn't. Everybody has the shortened spring training, so their timing's not quite right. And, that's another part of why this season has been so rough and so frustrating since that amazing, amazing end of November until the very first day of December. There was all this excitement, all this hype, and then immediately a freaking lockout for 99 days. All of that just, you can't build up the excitement. You're like, when the heck is baseball going to happen? When is there going to be a season? How long is it going to be? When is it going to start? What else are the Rangers going to do? Because they still had things to do. And then, you come back and everything just happened so fast after the lockout was done. The Rangers traded away IKF on day 1, and Mitch Garver came in, didn't even really have time to process that. Then they brought in Martin Perez and did several other deals and still felt like they had a little bit left on the table. Barely even had time to turn your head and realize, oh yeah, Brad Miller is on this team. Oh yeah, it's going to be Andy Ibanez pretty much every day at third base. There just wasn't enough time to process and get hyped about it. And it also completely hindered the starting pitchers with that shortened spring training. They are not themselves. They are not where they need to be start the season because they couldn't prepare because they didn't know when the heck this season was going to start. I'm going to talk a little bit more about how long these starting pitchers can be expected to take to get back up to where they need to be. A little bit about this bullpen and some roster moves as well. But first, this episode is brought to you by Blue Nile. That's right. We have Blue Nile, a new sponsor, which is a great upscale, fine jewelry. They've got diamond jewelry, they've got cocktail rings, they've got tennis bracelets, gold laying. Mother's Day is coming up. In case you didn't realize this, just want to put that on your radar so you don't forget like me and realize, oh, it's the day of and I need to go get a card. Well, you can get a card a little bit early, and you can also get some wonderful jewelry. This Mother's Day, you can give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com. And Locked On Rangers listeners get $50 off $500 spent. This is podcast exclusive. It's only good through Mother's Day. Use code Locked On. That's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in discreet packaging that won't give away what's inside. So you won't have something that absolutely just flashy, oh no, if your mom or your wife or your fiance or whoever sees it, they're not going to immediately realize, oh, this is a present for me. I need to go snooping and see what it is. It's going to be oh, this is some boring box. So I will just, give this to my husband and he will, have the secret so you can surprise them. So you can shop stress-free and find your forever piece. Go to BlueNile.com today. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every day. For your next listen, go check out the Locked On Now podcast, recaps of MLB games with analysis from our local experts taking fans through the season like no other network. It's free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Now, let's look a little bit at this starting pitching rotation. It is basically the same as we thought it would be for most of pitching, at least most of what I thought it would be. But to make a move, the Rangers to activate their ace. I really want to use air quotes until John Gray earns that. To activate their ace, they had to DFA Greg Holland. Now, you may think, okay, that's a little too early to DFA a guy. I mean, he's shown a lot of promise. He's been absolutely elite at times. He has been pretty much not a World Series MVP, but he was part of that bullpen that basically brought the Kansas City Royals through the postseason and dominated for a just ridiculously good 2-year stretch. You can't just throw that guy away. I mean, well, you can. You absolutely can. The Rangers have given him 5 different chances. He's been in big, high stress, high leverage situations. They want to see, okay, does this guy have anything left in the tank? He is 36 years old, turns 37 at some point later on this year in November. But last year he was not great for Kansas City. He had a 4.85 ERA in 55 and 2/3 innings. This year they've given him 5 opportunities to do it, and he just has not shown he is capable of doing that. He's got a 54 ERA plus, where 100 is average, so he is about half as good as your average reliever. He's got a 7.71 ERA. He struck out 5 in under 4 innings, but he's also given up 3 home runs. That is just not good enough when you're supposed to be a high leverage reliever. Part of the reason they brought him in is because they wanted someone who was more of a veteran and who has been really good for Major League pens in pennant chases to kind of give somebody that experience. I mean, Matt Bush is a little older. He has had a decently long Major League career, and he has been on some good teams. But again, and he has been the Rangers' best reliever so far at this point. I mean, he is 36 years old, but he only made his Major League debut in 2016. That was the last time the Rangers had a playoff team. And since then, no, he has not been on a good team. He's been on 2017 and 18. He was out for basically the entire year in the entire year in 2019 and 20. Then pitched 4 games last year on another terrible team and is back this year and looks a little bit healthier. It's kind of crazy that he's 36 and still has this few miles on his arm. I mean, part of that is because of his journey, and he went to prison and that whole thing. He also wasn't a pitcher coming up, so he didn't have those miles on his arm. But he's been really good for the Rangers so far, and you would like to see him throw a lot more multi-innings, because part of the reason that the Rangers signed all these different guys that they did for their bullpen, you got an expanded bullpen because, again, the stupid shortened spring training. I don't know if a month is long enough for these pitchers to get ready and get fully healthy, but Major League Baseball is saying that's pretty much the deadline. So May 1st is basically when you're going to expect and need your starting pitchers to be at their 90 to 95 to 100, maybe 100 plus pitch mark for every single start, because you're going to have normal rosters after that, and you don't have a crap ton of bullpen arms that can come in if you only go 3 2/3 innings or 3 innings, or you have almost an entire season where you have 10 game stretch where only 2 of your starters even go 5 innings. That's not good enough. And they need to continue to get better. And part of it is, okay, yeah, you need to get your pitches up. But part of it is the Rangers haven't been super efficient in their pitches with the pitches that they've thrown for the starters. John Gray did a pretty decent job in his last game, 77 pitches, went 5 innings, did give up 4 runs and a couple of loud home runs. But, other than that, 1 loud home run. But other than that, he was mostly fine. I really just wanted to see him go 5 innings. And he's coming off that injury, so he missed a start. This should have been his 3rd start because of that stupid blister. He missed a start, and so he went 70 pitches in his first start, 77 in the last one. But the rest of the guys, they need to step up and be more efficient. Dane Dunning went not very long in his last start. He went 5 innings in his first start, went through 74 pitches, and went less than 5 innings in his last start, and he threw 86 pitches. That's 12 more pitches, and he was significantly less efficient with it. Taylor Hearn went, I believe, 3 2/3 innings in his last start. He threw over 80 pitches, and normally he'd done a pretty good job of being efficient with his pitches. It's just they kept on getting hit. He had been done a much better job of not trying to strike everybody out and not being too fine and not walking as many guys, but he still wasn't efficient. He threw 86 pitches and didn't even get to 4 innings. That's not great. That's a huge load on the bullpen that the bullpen doesn't need. He went 76 in his first start and went 4 innings. That's fine. That's solid. But you're aiming for around 5 innings with these guys, with these back 3 of the rotation in Dunning, Hearn, and Howard. Howard went, I believe, 2 innings in his first start and threw 49 pitches. But Martin Perez is the guy who's really got to step it up. He did have an injury to start the season in spring training, but he's there, and he's not being efficient. He is not a strikeout guy. He is not a, be too fine a point guy. That is not who he is. We know who he is. He is a ground ball pitcher. He is a guy who induces outs and should theoretically be very efficient with his pitch count and pitch pretty deep into games. But he hasn't done that. He's gone 4 innings in both of his starts. He threw 68 pitches in his first one, 67 in his second one. The Rangers really need to let him go on and get. I want to see him at least at that 80 pitch mark in his next start, because the Rangers brought him in to eat innings. They brought him in to be, someone like a Jordan Lyles, hopefully slightly better. But at this point, the Rangers could really use a Jordan Lyles, and that is deeply shocking and frustrating to say. Because at least Jordan Lyles, he might have given up 7 runs, but he'll eat 5-6 innings nearly every single time. And the Rangers desperately need that, especially from their top 2 guys in Martin Perez and John Gray. We'll get into a little bit of this bullpen, what it's going to look like in the future, who the heck in this bullpen is actually terrible, and who secretly, despite my wishes and hopes for spring training, has been coming in to save the day. But first, this episode is brought to you by Built Bar. That's right, it's Built Bar, the best tasting protein bar that has ever existed. I am so hungry right now that I'm probably going to go order some Built Bars as soon as I finish recording this podcast, because they are so absolutely delicious and good for you. They're low calorie, they're high in protein. You can replace your candy bars with these. They're much better for you, and honestly, they're much better tasting than a whole lot of candy bars. A typical candy bar can be anywhere from 200 to 300 calories, but most Built Bars contain 130. They've got 4 grams of sugar and 4 net carbs and 17 grams of protein. They are absolutely delicious. They have so many different flavors. They're all covered in 100% chocolate. They're soft. They're easy to chew. They are just fantastic. They've got protein infused marshmallows. What kind of science will they think up next? Well, you can stay up to date with the flavors and go order yourself a box as well at built.com. Use promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCK15 for 15% off at built.com. Now let's take a look at this bullpen. This bullpen has been politely quite terrible to start the season. There has been nobody outside of, Matt Bush and Dennis Santana who is really blown up in a game. Everybody else has been blown up at some point. Even Spencer Patton got lit up. The one shining beacon of hope for the Rangers was Spencer Patton. And that didn't happen. It's funny. This Rangers bullpen has literally 0 saves. 0 saves through 10 games. Well, you have to get wins to get saves. And the Rangers only have 2 of those. And both of those were somehow by a pretty wide margin against 2 what looks like pretty good teams. But of this bullpen, I mean, who's going to be here next year? Let's take a look at that. I think Spencer Patton is making a case to be here next year, or really more making a case to just be decent and be shipped off at the midpoint of this season, because it's not looking like the Rangers are going to fulfill my wishes and be somewhat in contention at the end of the season. At this pace, well, I don't want to be on pace guy, but I kind of do. At this pace, they're going to be just, I think 32 wins is what they're on pace for at this point. If the season continues at this rate, which, good God, that would be absolutely horrific. And I would not like that at all. I don't care. And I don't even think I think this is the year that the draft lottery starts. So even if the Rangers do have 130 losses, then they wouldn't be guaranteed for the number one overall pick. So this is really the year to not be decidedly terrible. You can be like a little terrible. If you're, I think it's the bottom 4 or 5 teams that have the raffle for the number one overall pick. It's not like the NBA lottery where everybody who misses the playoffs has a chance at that number one overall pick. So that's a little bit better, and I think that's a better system for baseball, but it does hurt the Rangers if they are, on the precipice of making the playoffs and then don't, because then they're still going to have that mediocre pick. But of this pen, who's going to be here long term? Drake Holland, obviously not. Obviously, he's not going to be here long term. I think John King, Brett Martin are going to be here for at least several years. Brock Burke is 25, so he is going to be here for the future. I don't know about Josh Sborz. I'm kind of over him. I get that the raw stuff is nice, but I've seen him for several years, and I just don't love what I've seen. He's got an 11.25 ERA so far in 4 outings and 4 innings. At this point, he's given up 2 home runs and walked 2 in his 4 innings. He's got just as many hits as innings pitched, and it's just not been great stuff for him. Dennis Santana, obviously going to be part of this future bullpen. He's been able to show that he can go multiple innings. He's 26 years old. He's going to be coming off the COVID IL fairly soon. Albert Abreu, I still don't know what to make of him. He's only pitched in 2 games. He has actually gone multiple innings. And I think Joe Barlow is going to be part of this rotation moving forward as well as Nicholas Snyder. He is now listed as Nicholas, not Nick. Garrett Richards allegedly is part of his bullpen moving forward. He was supposed to be a guy who came in and threw multiple innings, but he's been doing absolutely nothing so far. He's making $4.5 million this year. I believe he's the highest paid Rangers reliever on this team, which is insane because he's been aggressively mediocre. And again, he's only thrown in 2 games. He's supposed to be this guy who's kind of a hybrid. He's shown some promise. He had some pretty good years as a starting pitcher. He finished top 10 in pitching WAR in 2014. He's been mostly fine, but he is a bullpen guy, and he's making $4.5 million next year. He's got an option for, I believe, $9 million next year, which is kind of insane because he's going to be 35 years old next year. But really, this guy has not proved anywhere near what the Rangers wanted from him. And it's not like there was nobody else on the relief market. It's not like there still aren't guys that could be had. Probably for at least that money, and if not, less money. Tommy Hunter's still available. He had a pretty good season last year. He is a former Ranger great, so that would have been nice. Josh Tomlin is there, who can throw multiple innings. He is 37, but coming off of nearly half a WAR season. Chaz Rowe is a guy who I believe is still available as well. Yusmeiro Petit, Wander Suero, Jesse Hahn, John Axford. These guys were all there for the Rangers to go get, and they just decided to not do that. I don't really know why. They loved what they saw from this guy. They also liked what they saw from Brandon Workman, which turned out to be a whole bunch of nothing. Joe Palumbo signed a deal with San Francisco. Honestly, the Rangers could even use him at this point. The Rangers were so focused on getting guys who could go multiple innings, they forgot to get guys who could even go 1 inning. So, yeah, I think their priorities were a little messed up on that one. But, you live, you laugh, you love, and you learn. And I hope the Rangers learn that they can't completely ignore the bullpen. They are going to have a couple of guys that come in and hopefully can go multiple innings in Jose Leclerc and Jonathan Hernandez. But again, it's going to be, I believe, mid-May to the end of May to maybe June for one of those guys. It's going to be a while. It's not a short time. And what's in the pen right now has not been super duper inspiring, just like the performance on the field in general has not been super duper inspiring. There were some positives from last night's game. I did like what I saw from Eli White. He really did have a jump start on this team, provided some real value. He got on board twice. He got a single, he got a walk, he was aggressive on the base pass, and we also got to see a Marcus Semien 2 RBI game. He had a double and I believe a sac fly as well. We got to see some aggressive stolen bases from Adolis Garcia as well. Other than that, there really wasn't a whole lot to like about last night's game, unless you liked Matt Moore. That's right. I have to eat a little bit of crow on Matt Moore. I'm not going to eat that much because I still don't think that he's part of this Rangers team, hopefully by the end of the year. I'm hoping, unless he's much better, in which case I will eat several crows and feel okay about it. Matt Moore came in and shut it down when Spencer Patton just did not have it. He came in, got the final out of the 7th, and was able to get through the 8th inning. Life hack to save your bullpen: you're on the road. You only have to pitch 8 innings in a game if you're losing going into the 9th, and you continue to be losing going into the bottom of the 9th. They just don't play that bottom of the 9th inning. So you're saving your bullpen an inning. So maybe the Rangers are trying to life hack their way through not pitching their bullpen in the bottom of the 9th inning, and therefore finding a, creative way to save their arms, which, every once in a while I think that's a smart move. Maybe not to lose intentionally, but it's not a horrific consequence. And the Rangers are going to be on the road for the rest of this week. Let's take a little bit of a look around the division and see where things stack up after the Rangers have played 10 games and some other teams have played other games. Take a guess who's leading the division. You might guess, okay, well, it's Seattle. They just clobbered the Rangers last night. No. Oh, well, I guess it's the stupid Astros because, they're stupid Astros and they're going to win some stupid game and it's going to be annoying. No. It's a two-way tie between the two teams that everybody picked to win this division: Los Angeles Angels and the Oakland A's. They are both 7-5. I don't know how the Oakland A's are 7-5. They have played mostly good teams. They have played, I believe, Toronto. They have played Tampa Bay, and they have won against these teams. They played Philly as well. It's just I don't really know what the heck is happening with them. Yeah, they beat the Tampa Bay Rays. Now they are playing a series against the Orioles, who are particularly horrendous. And this A's team is not going to be easy for the Rangers to beat, which is very frustrating to say because I thought they were going to be very easy to beat for this Texas Rangers team coming into this weekend. I'm going to try and get a crossover with Jason Burke, who also has a new baby, so scheduling is a little bit of a difficulty. We're going to try and get that out to you on Friday, but that's where the Rangers are at this point. They need a lot of help in their starting pitching. They need guys to be efficient and use their pitches well. And they really just need this offense to score more than 3 runs a game, more than just in the first 4 innings. And they just really need everything to be better. I would like it if everything was better. That would be very nice for me personally, and for all of you nice Rangers fans who have suffered through a lot of badness for the last couple of years and just want fun. Not great, not world-beating, just moments of fun, not a lot of games like last night that was just kind of soul-sucking to watch. I don't want more of those games, especially on West Coast road trips. So the least you can do is make it interesting. If you're gonna keep people up late night, the ones who are actually watching, then you gotta at least make it interesting, Rangers. That's all I'm asking for. Please, just do slightly better. That's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Rangers. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.